PBL Season 5 General Ledger and Reporting System.
Trait 1. Error in updating the general ledger because of inaccurate or incomplete journal entry or posting of journal entries. There are three ways to control this trait. One of the ways is to use the various processing integrity control, which can minimize the risk of data input error when the treasurer and controller make direct journal entry. For example, asking the employee to attend a seminar regarding to how to ensure the data accurate and complete, rechecking the data after doing all of the work, reviewing it again, become more honest, more integrity, and more ethical in doing their job, and this will be their motivation in doing their work. Secondly, it is also important to restrict access to general ledger and configure the system so that only authorized employees can make changes to master data. Thus, multi-factor authentication should be used to restrict access to general ledger. For example, need to have 1 or 2 evidence before making the changes. In addition, under this way, authorization control should also be used to limit the function that legitimate user may perform. For example, most managers should be given read-only access to the general ledger. Otherwise, an unscrupulous manager can conceal theft of asset or poor performance by altering the information in the general ledger. However, it is also important to carefully restrict read-only privileges to specific portion of the system. In addition, the access control metric should also be designed to limit the function that can be performed at various terminals, like adjusting errors, for example, should be allowed only for terminal in the controller's office. The last way we need to control this trait is to assign detective control. Although we have applied the above two ways, but those preventive does not 100% effective. So, it is important to assign detective control in order to regularly produce a report of changes to the general ledger and review them to verify that the database remains accurate. For example, since the company have to hire detective control, so every changes that had been made by the authorized team will be viewed. At the end of the month, the data will be accurate and valid. Trait 2. Loss or unauthorized disclosure or altering of financial data. The best control procedures reducing the risk of this kind of threat is to use multi-factor authentication and physical security control to restrict access to the general ledger, where only employees in the field can have the access in order to perform their jobs. For example, only employees that have access can view and edit the general ledger, but the editing can be done by having enough evidence. Besides, encrypting the database also can be provide additional protection by making information unintelligible to anyone who succeeds in obtaining unauthorized access to the database. For example, when a person accesses a system with unauthorized access, the person cannot view the system clearly. This is because the company had applied encrypting the database by blurring the data if the access is from unauthorized access. Encryption is not only for the outsider, but it also for the internal worker. For example, it also prevents the IT employees to access the sensitive information in the company. It is not easy because the system is blocked for any hackers. Trait 3. Loss or destruction of the general ledger. The best way to mitigate the risk of this trait is to employ the backup and disaster recovery procedure. Data backup procedures are designed to deal with the situation where information is not accessible because the relevant file or database have become corrupted. A full backup is a Z copy of the entire database. Full backup are time-consuming, so most organizations do full backup weekly and supplement them with daily partial backup. There are two daily partial backup, an incremental backup and differential backup. The incremental backup involves in copying only the data items that have changed since he last partial backup, while the differential backup copies all changes made since the last full backup. No matter which backup procedure is used, multiple backup copies should be created. One copy can be stored on-site and another copy can be stored off-site. This is because if there is a fire or flood on-site and all the copies on-site destroyed, we still have the copy off-site. Disaster Recovery Procedure (DRP) is a backup which designed to mitigate problem when one or more file or database become corrupted because of hardware, software, or human error. This procedure is to restore an organization's IT function in the event that its data center is destroyed. There are three options for replacing the IT infrastructure. The first option is to contract for use of cold site. Cold site is a disaster recovery option that relies on access to an alternative facilities that is pre-wired for necessary telephone and internet access but does not contain any computing equipment. Second option is to contract for use of a hot site. Hot site is a disaster recovery option that relies on access to completely operational alternative data center that is not only pre-wired but also contain all necessary hardware and software. The third option is real-time mirroring that involves in maintaining complete copies of database at two separate data center and updating two copies in real time as each transactions occur. Option that will be chosen is based on the relationship of recovery point objective (RPO) and recovery time objective (RTO). RPO is the amount of data the organization is willing to re-enter or potentially lost, while RTO is the maximum tolerable time to restore an organization's information system following a disaster, representing the length of time that the organization is willing to attempt to function without its information system. If a company wants RPO and RTO as close as 0, they can choose option 3. This type of company is a company that needs to continue functioning no matter what happened to their data, such as airlines. Cold site may be appropriate when RPO and RTO is greater than 1 day. And if the management has decided that it can tolerate RTO and RPO ranging from hours up to full day, the choice of hot site as DRP is warranted.